The next time you hear a political commentator, a politician, or a street activist, if you spend even 5 minutes on social media or watch the evening news or walk across a university campus in Australia, you're going to hear two words over and over again: fascist and Nazi. Today these words are used as ultimate political insults. Don't like a tax policy? You're a fascist. Think a border should have a wall? You're a Nazi. Disagree with someone's view on public health? You're a fascist. If you don't believe that people can change their gender, you're a fascist and a Nazi. The people throwing these labels around are usually view themselves as the good guys, the defenders of freedom, tolerance and democracy. They must think they're superheroes. They usually sit firmly on the modern progressive left side of politics. But what if I told you that if you pick up a history book, dust off the actual definitions of those words, and look at how those regimes behaved, a terrifying paradox emerges. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. The very people weaponizing these labels today are using the exact same psychological playbooks, the enforcement tactics even, and the control mechanisms as the mid-20th century regimes that they claim to hate. Most of us were taught politics is a straight line. On the far left, you have communism, and on the far right, you have fascism. The idea is that they are complete opposites of the spectrum. But in 1972, there was a French philosopher named Jean-Pierre Faye, F-A-Y-E, that realized this model is fundamentally broken. He introduced what is called the Horseshoe theory. So think of politics like a horseshoe. The middle is where the most ordinary people sit. They want to be left alone. They want to run their businesses and have free speech. As you move down the sides towards the extremes, you do not get further apart because the ends of the horseshoe actually bend toward each other until they almost touch. Why? Because extreme left-wing authoritarianism and extreme right-wing fascism share the exact same DNA. They both believe that individual freedom must be crushed for the greater good of the whole collective, the hive mind. So today I'm going to look past those labels. I'm going to ignore the modern media spin and I'm going to look into history. I'm going to examine history. And together we're going to look at the mechanics of control, how the modern left's push for compliance, institutional capture, and street-level bullying mirrors the darkest periods of our own past. Let's start with just a history lesson that's almost entirely been wiped out from modern high school textbooks. Where did fascism actually come from? It didn't start with the corporate billionaires or traditional small government conservatives. It started with a man named Benito Mussolini. And before Mussolini invented fascism in 1919, do you know what his job was? He was a radical, a hardcore Marxist socialist. He was the editor of Italy's official socialist newspaper, Avanti, which means forward. Mussolini didn't abandon his collectivist, state-run ideas. He just repackaged them. Bit like what Albo's doing now with the negative gearing, backflips and taxes and things like that. Repackaging them, having a change of direction. The philosopher who helped him write the Doctrine of Fascism, Giovanni Gentile, explicitly wrote that fascism was a form of socialism. The only difference was that while traditional Marxism focused on class unity, fascism focused on national unity. Mussolini summarized the entire ideology of fascism in one famous sentence. Everything within the state, nothing outside the state, nothing against the state. So think about what that actually means. It means the government is the ultimate authority over all of life. It controls the economy. It controls your business. It controls the schools. It controls what we are allowed to think and to say. Now ask yourself this. Which side of modern political aisle wants a massive state that regulates your business down to the micro level, dictates what your children are taught about morality in the public schools, and punishes people for holding thoughts outside of the approved mainstream narrative? I think we're all seeing that around us every day in these modern times. And all of that I've just said isn't coming from the conservative right, whose core philosophy, even if they don't always live up to it, like the LNP government, is limited government, lower taxes, individual liberty, and personal responsibility. The desire to use the raw power of the state to reshape society and to force compliance and to manage daily life is an inherently left-wing ambition. Even the word fascism gives way to its collective roots. It comes from the Latin word fascis, I think it's pronounced. It's F-A-S-C-E-S, which means a bundle of rods bound together. And the message is simple. A single stick is weak and can be broken, but bound together in a collective, they are unbreakable. Now, before Mussolini co-opted this symbol, it was widely used by left-wing peasant unions and radical socialist groups in Italy to represent solidarity. And that's a noble cause, solidarity. The psychological core of fascism, though, is the elimination of individual in favour of the group. In Hitler's Germany, the story was remarkably similar. The full name of the Nazi Party wasn't the right-wing capitalist party, the National Socialist German Workers' Party. Okay, so while they violently fought the Soviet communists, they did so not because they disagreed with state control, but because they were rival gangs fighting over the exact same turf. And as the saying goes, two mafia bosses fighting over a neighborhood doesn't make one of them the police. They're both criminals. They both want total control. They just want to be the ones running it. And that's what our left-wing governments are like today. To understand how these ideologies align today, we have to look past the symbols and look at the actual mechanics of it. How they treat people who disagree with them. I've been on the receiving end of this many times because of my views, my beliefs, my culture. Totalitarianism relies on three specific mechanics in order for it to function. The first one is dividing society, in-group versus the out-group. We saw a lot of that during COVID, and we're seeing a lot of it now with these trans ideology agendas and things like that. A fascist regime cannot survive without an enemy. They must divide society into two groups: the pure and virtuous in-group and the evil parasitic out-group. In the 1930s, this division was built entirely on race, blood, and soil. Today, just look at how the modern radical left views the world. They have resurrected the exact same framework, dividing humanity not by individual character, but by immutable traits. Through the lens of modern identity politics and hyper-progressive theories, you are boiled down entirely to your race, your gender, and your sexuality. And that's the way they want it. You're either part of the marginalized virtuous group, or you're part of the oppressor, the evil group. And just like the authoritarians of the past, individual thought is rejected. Freedom of thought and speech is rejected. If you belong to a specific group, you are expected to think a certain way. And if you don't, you are viewed as a traitor to your identity. And we see that with the Labour Party. If you control the words people are allowed to use, you control the thoughts they're allowed to have, conceivably. Both fascist Italy and Nazi Germany created brand new words, banned the old ones and forced people to use state-approved language under the threat of social and legal ruin. We're seeing that right now when we're not allowed to misgender people. We're not allowed to say things that might hurt feelings. So look at this intently and see where this is going. Now we need to look at the modern left, because over the last decade, we've seen an unprecedented explosion of compelled language, what I was just talking about. Everyday terms are suddenly deemed offensive or harmful, like man or woman, male or female. They're being brought out as offensive or harmful. New linguistic acronyms and vocabulary are invented overnight. And if you do not immediately memorize and use them, you're labeled a bigot, a transphobe, or a white supremacist. It's the exact same mechanics, forcing the populace to adopt a brand new vocabulary to signal their compliance to the dominant ideology. In a free society, if I disagreed with you, we can have a debate. I present my facts, you present your facts, and we let the best argument win, the way society should be. In this fascist system, disagreement is treason. The opponent is not someone who simply has a different perspective. They are an existential threat to the collective good. Therefore, they cannot be debated. They must be destroyed. And that's why we see so many of these marches with the groups like ANTIFA and the other radical, rabid left. If people on the right don't agree and don't conform and don't accept, like if I refuse to call a man in a dress a woman, they get violent, they attack. And that's what this all comes down to. That's why I'm explaining this to you. This is the psychological engine of cancel culture. We all know what cancel culture is. If a professor, a business owner, or an ordinary citizen expresses an opinion that goes against left-wing orthodoxy, even an opinion that was completely mainstream, say 5 years ago, even maybe 3 years ago, the response is not debate. The response is an immediate coordinated campaign to get them fired, to ruin their reputation, strip them of their livelihood, and erase them from public life altogether. So they don't have a say. So people can't hear what they're saying. People only listen to the left. And just as a caveat to this, I actually believe this is the one good thing that's come out of this under 16 social media ban, is that the left don't have access to poison, to indoctrinate the young minds through social media at the moment. That's the one thing I agree with this social media ban. When you seek to destroy a person's life purely because they refuse to bow to your ideological demands, you're acting as an authoritarian enforcer, whether you think so or not. That is exactly what you're doing. Now, let's talk about the physical violence and the street level intimidation. Going back to Hitler, before he took control, or took total control of the German government, he relied heavily on a paramilitary wing called the Sturmabteilung. I'll put the word up on the screen here. Or the SA, commonly known as the brown shirts. The brown shirts didn't wear official military uniforms at first. They weren't the police. They were political thugs. Their job was simple: go into the towns, disrupt the political meetings of anyone who opposed the Nazis, physically assault speakers, block roads, terrorize local business owners, and create an atmosphere of sheer terror so that ordinary citizens would be too afraid to speak up. Now, we're seeing exactly those same things happening with Labour's Get Up militia force, with Antifa, who are the true fascists. And they say that the right wing and the conservatives are the fascists. And the historical justification for this, that they always used the same one. Our opponents are uniquely evil. They want to destroy our future. Therefore, using violence against them is not just allowed, it's a moral duty. Now look at the television screens over the past few years. When radical left-wing groups like Antifa or militant climate activists take to the streets, what do they do? What do they do? The violence, the vitriol towards those who don't agree with them. And we see exactly the same. They wear matching black uniforms and face masks to hide their identities, like the SA troops did. They physically block the highways, stopping ordinary citizens from going to work or going to hospitals for life-saving treatment. They physically surround restaurants, screaming in the faces of everyday people, demanding they raise a fist in solidarity. And they swarm the university lecture halls, smashing windows and setting fires to prevent conservative or classical liberal intellectuals from speaking. And the deep irony is that these modern groups call themselves ANTIFA, short for anti-fascist. They should call themselves thugs. They believe that because they have given themselves a virtuous label, their actions don't matter. But history teaches us a brutal truth. Fascism is not defined by what you call yourself. It's defined by your actions. If you're masking your face, using physical violence to shut down free speech, terrifying business owners, and destroying public property because people won't accept your ideology, you're not fighting the brown shirts. You are the brown shirts. You are the fascists. You are the Nazis. You are the left. You are using the exact tactical playbook used to destroy democracy in Weimar, Germany. And there's one final piece to this puzzle. How authoritarian regimes take over a country without firing a single shot. It's a process historians call Gleichschaltung, or coordination, another word I've probably butchered in German. When the totalitarian regimes of the 20th century came to power, they knew they couldn't just rely on brute force. They needed to capture the cultural engines of society, the slow march through the institutions. They systematically took over the universities, the press, the legal courts, the theatre, the arts, and the corporate boardrooms. They turned every single institution into a megaphone for the state ideology. And if you wanted to be a teacher, an actor, or a journalist, or a successful business executive, you had to explicitly pledge allegiance to the regime's worldview. So look at the world today. Who has captured our cultural institutions? Over the past few decades, the political left has completed a systematic march through our universities, our legacy media outlets, our entertainment industries, and even the human resources departments of the major Fortune 500 companies. Today, corporate megabanks and tech giants regularly enforce ideological compliance. It's you accept the ideology or you lose your job. And we see financial institutions shutting off the bank accounts of political dissidents who don't agree with this ideology. We see social media companies colluding behind closed doors with government agencies like the social media companies and the Australia's e-safety commissioner, or the e-Karen, as she's quite often known. And they're being made to offer or to censor the real factual viewpoints that contradict the ruling party's narrative. When major corporations, the media, and the government work hand in hand to suppress dissent and enforce a singular political orthodoxy, that is the literal definition of corporate fascism. Mussolini himself noted that fascism could easily be called corporatism because it is a merger of state and corporate power. So the next time you hear a political commentator a politician or a street activist screaming that their opponents are fascists or Nazis, I want you to look past the smoke and mirrors that they're putting right up in front of you. Don't look at their badges, their flags, or their catchy slogans. Look at their actions and ask yourself, who is trying to silence the debate here? And who is asking for open conversation? Who is demanding top-down government control over your life, your business, your speech, and who is advocating for individual liberty? Who's using fear, intimidation, and social destruction to force you to repeat words that you truly don't believe? And who is leaving you alone? True freedom does not belong to the collective. It does not belong to a racial group, a social class, or a violent ideological mob like Antifa. True freedom belongs to you, the individual. We, the people. It is protected by small, limited government, by absolute free speech, absolutely the rule of law, and the right to disagree without having your life destroyed. And the far left has mastered the art of projection. They accuse their enemies of the very sins they commit every single day. So don't fall for the linguistic trap. Watch the methods, because history shows us that the loudest anti-fascists are often just fascists looking for a socially acceptable target. Thank you for watching. I'm Brian. This is Voice in the Wilderness. If you want to dive deeper into the history, the philosophy, or the facts that we discussed today, please check out the verified historical sources and the reading list down in the description below. Educate yourselves. Links to all the evidence is in the description. Think for yourself and stay free. And remember who the real fascists and Nazis are.